Brazil's presidential candidates Jair Bolsonaro and Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva are advancing in their political campaigns to increase points in the polls that show a possible technical tie between the two. Egypt urged the UN to provide climate action funding to the poorest nations ahead of the COP27 in November. And the death toll after a strong earthquake rocked southwest China rose to 82, while another 26 people remain missing. Brazil's presidential candidates Jair Bolsonaro and also the candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva are advancing in their political campaigns to increase points in the polls that show a possible technical tie between the two. The current Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, used this Wednesday the bicentennial celebrations of the country's independence to show electoral strength and mobilize thousands of people in support of his candidacy for the October 2nd elections. For his part, the former president and candidate of the Vamos Juntos por Brasil, Let's Go Together for Brazil coalition, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, regret that it was not a day of love and union for Brazil, but marked by the language of hate that he attributed to Bolsonaro. Lula da Silva is expected to hold his first act as official candidate in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday in view of the presidential election. With less than a month to go to the presidential elections in Brazil, the political landscape of that South American nation is more polarized than ever, and the bicentenary festivities on September 7th were a clear sign of this situation. To go on the matter, we received Professor and activist Danny Shaw. We welcome Danny.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so let's start. There are reports of the bicentenary celebrations, as it was a festive day for Brazilians. But that date was something else. Can you describe for us the atmosphere there?
Yeah, in the afternoon, Jair Bolsonaro came to his base in the richer areas of Rio de Janeiro, Copacabana, Ipanema, Barra da Tijuca. He had an estimated 65,000 people come out, and it was really a spectacle. There were several former Trump strategists there with him on the stage from the far right in the United States. There was also this military show, the fireworks and the jets and the huge warships. So all of Brazil is questioning, how do you mix a bicentennial celebration with your presidential campaign with less than a month to go? So this is, again, Jair Bolsonaro having no scruples, no sense of integrity in using what should be a festive day for the 210 million people of Brazil as a political opportunity just for himself and his closest associates.
Okay, so Bolsonaro called his supporters to take over the streets on September 7th, of course ahead of this date, coinciding with the celebrations in Independence Day. He also teamed up with religious leaders and farmers and promoted a military parade as a way to show some muscle. Is this an advance of what could happen on October the 2nd?
There were already rumors yesterday that September 7th was the day of Jair Bolsonaro's golpe, of his potential coup. Right now, it doesn't seem like he has enough support among the generals. There are some generals that are loyal to him, including his running mate, General Braga. These are generals who are making something like 50 to 75 times as much as the everyday Brazilian citizen. The rhetoric that Bolsonaro uses is that he's a victim of the mainstream media. And it's difficult to understand how someone who comes from a military family, an elite family of Rio de Janeiro, considers himself a victim in any way. Lula's base is extremely strong, not so much in the rich parts of Sao Paulo or Rio, as we can imagine. So often the Bolsonaro marches, even if they only have tens of thousands, get more attention from some of the right-wing media outlets. But Lula has a big campaign gathering today in Novo Iguaçu, just outside of Rio de Janeiro, in the most oppressed areas. And tomorrow he'll be meeting with different Christian leaders in Sao Gonçalo, which is right across the river from Rio de Janeiro.
Yes, indeed. Now that we talk about Lula, let's talk about him, because we were talking about Bolsonaro and his supporters. But what about Lula and his followers yesterday? Can you tell us something about this?
Yesterday, as every September 7th in Brazil, it was Grito dos Excluídos, the cry of the excluded. You had all different popular sectors in the streets of Brazil, the LGBTQ movement, Black Lives Matter, Black Power. You had the unions, Ukuchi. You had the movement of the landless, MST, the movement of the homeless. And you had, across the country, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets saying that, where is our independence? Independence for who? Independence in quotation marks, because we don't have economic sovereignty. We don't have political sovereignty. We don't want to continue to be a neo-colony of the United States and of Western capital for the next 4 years. So for us, this showdown on October 2nd is a life and death showdown.
So thanks, Danny, for your time and your opinions hearing from the South.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, it's always an honor to have you. Now we go for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Workers at United Kingdom Royal Mail announced further strikes in a dispute over pay and conditions. Staff in a communication workers union confirmed the strike will take place on Thursday and Friday this week. They also stated that there will be strikes for 48 hours on September 30th and October 1st. ZWU General Strike Secretary Dave Ward emphasized that postal workers are completely united in their determination to secure the dignified, proper pay rise they deserve. He stressed that people can't keep on living in a country where bosses rake in billions in profit while their employees are forced to use food banks to survive. United Kingdom Prime Minister Liz Truss unveiled on Thursday a 2-year energy plan to freeze domestic fuel bills to help ease the burden of a soaring cost of living crisis.
The government is moving immediately to introduce a new energy price guarantee that will give people certainty on energy bills. It will curb inflation and boost growth. This guarantee, which includes a temporary suspension of green levies, means that from the 1st of October, a typical household will pay no more than £2,500 per year for each of the next 2 years while we get the energy market back on track.
Croatia President Zoran Milanovic received his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday in Zagreb, the last stop of his three-nation tour. Erdogan and his Croatian counterpart held one-on-one talks and inter-delegation meetings, followed by a joint news conference. During the talks, both head of state reviewed all aspects of bilateral relations and steps to enhance cooperation on various areas. As part of his visit to the Balkan nation, President Erdogan opened the Islamic Culture Center in the central city of Sisak. He later attended the Turkey-Croatia Business Forum and an official dinner hosted by his Croatian counterpart. And the International Olympic Committee on Thursday paid further tribute to the victims of the 1972 Munich Olympics attack at its executive board meeting in Lausanne, Switzerland. August 5th marked 50 years since the massacre that left 11 Israeli athletes and coaches and a German policeman dead.
5th of September 1972 was the darkest day in Olympic history. What began so peacefully and joyfully in these Olympic Games ended in inconceivable suffering. We share the pain of the relatives of the 11 Israeli victims and the German policemen. We empathize with the relatives. We share their grief. The murdered members of the Israeli Olympic team were, are, and will remain a part of our Olympic movement.
A report published by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs stated that the international community is not on track to achieve the stated goal of gender equality in the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The international body also said that if the current rate of progress continues, it could take close 300 years to achieve the goals. According to the Progress on the Sustainable Development Goals report, without swift action, legal systems that do not ban violence against women and do not provide them with equal pay and benefits that work may continue to exist for generations to come. The study also revealed how gender disparities worsened in the face of global crises such as COVID-19 pandemic, violent conflicts, and climate change. Hundreds of students rallied in Indonesia's capital on Thursday to protest sharp increases in fuel prices by the government. Protesters from several student organizations gathered at Jakarta's International and National Monument, which commemorates Indonesia's struggle for independence in protest for the increase in the oil prices of about 30%. Protests have been held in several large cities since Monday by students, workers, farmers, fishermen, and teachers. Workers are planning more rallies and considering a national strike unless the increase is resigned. President Joko Widodo said the government was forced to raise fuel prices because the country's energy subsidies has tripled this year to 502 trillion rupiah, $34 billion. TeleSUR will dedicate its coverage of the Football World Cup Qatar 2022 to the figure of Diego Armando Maradona, who accompanied our crew in the last two World Cups. With the football star, we also toured our continent with the show The Sur de Viajero. We want this tribute to have its own music. With that in mind, we invite you to write and compose a song for TeleSUR's coverage of Qatar 2022 Football World Cup. It must be an original song, never recorded before or published in any media, and free of legal attachments. Record the song in any format, WAV, MP3, even with your cell phone. And send it as an attachment to comunicaciones at telesurtv.net. With the following information: author's name, nationality, and the name of the song. The closing date of the call for entries is September 10th, 2022. A jury of prestigious musicians and composers from the region will select the winning piece. The prize will be the recording of the song, a video clip, and the wide diffusion of the work. 1 week after the closing of the call, TeleSUR will announce the results. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Egypt urged the UN to provide funding to the poorest nations in order to boost the fight against climate change. In the framework of the COP27 International Cooperation Forum, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi denounced that the cost of combating the climate problem will reach $800 billion a year by 2025. The president pointed out that the 20 most developed nations are responsible for 80% of the planet's population and pollution. Also, the Egyptian Finance Minister, Mohamed Maharit, called for better investments in various sectors, especially in the promotion of renewable energy sources. The official stressed the need to find new ways to mobilize financial contributions for sustainable development in Africa. Egypt will host the COP27 summit in November. Australia's Senate on Thursday voted to ensure the government's target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by the 43% below 2005 levels by the end of the decade is enshrined in law. The Senate passed legislation supporting the target in a vote of 37 to 30, even though senators who favored it wanted a more ambitious 2030 target. The centre-left Labour Party officially committed the government to the 43% target after it came to power for the first time in 9 years at May elections. Meanwhile, there were some legislators that claimed passing the target into law will make it more difficult for any future government to reduce it.
The government's climate change bill passed the Senate, 37 votes to 30. That's what restoring leadership's all about. It is well on its way to becoming the law of the land, Mr Speaker. And in relation to the leadership we have to show and the damage we have to repair, the House knows the impacts of 10 years of delay and denial and dysfunction. And what we've seen is 10 years of underinvestment in renewable energy and in electricity generation. And that's what the Act is all about, sending the message to investors that Australia is open for business.
The United Nations World Food Programme is partnering with local and international NGOs to address food insecurity arising from the devastating flooding in Pakistan. Official figures released show how the death toll in Pakistan from this season monsoon rains has risen to 1,325. However, the number of people affected by the flooding is much larger, and officials with the Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific at the United Nations Refugee Agency estimate that the aftermath of the floods is continuing to impact over 33 million people. Livestock has also suffered. For example, about 700,000 animals in total have died. Trucks can't access the damaged areas, and so they are getting stuck and having to go back again and again to reach the affected populations. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif told an American diplomat on Thursday that the world must step up its fight against climate change to avoid more deadly flooding in the impoverished Islamic nation, the government said. Sharif made the comment in a meeting with Derek Chollet, a senior State Department official visiting Islamabad to assess damages and arrange for aid in the wake of floods that have killed 1,355 people. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also was to arrive in Pakistan on Friday to travel to flood-hit areas. So far, UN agencies and several countries have sent dozens of plane loads of aid to Pakistani flood victims. The catastrophe has added new burdens to the cash-strapped Pakistan and highlighted the disproportionate effect of climate change in impoverished populations. And the death toll after a strong earthquake rocked southwest China rose to 82, while another 26 people remain missing. Rain, flash floods and mudslides still threaten the search for dozens of people. State broadcaster CCTV reported that 46 people died in Ganzi Prefecture near the epicenter, while 36 fatalities were reported in neighboring Jian City. The magnitude 6.6 quake hit about 43 kilometers southeast of the city of Kandin in Sichuan province, forcing thousands to be resettled into temporary camps. The People's Liberation Army, paramilitary police, and fire rescue services dispatched more than 10,000 workers to the area, who continued search operations and landslide cleanup efforts. Now we address other topics. The Chinese city of Chengdu extended COVID-19 confinement over most of its territory, maintaining restrictions that have left many of the 21 million residents locked indoors. This city in southwestern Sichuan province has been under lockdown for a week after reporting several hundred cases. The measures should have been lifted on Wednesday, but the municipal government indicated that the entire city will continue the assault for zero contagion in the community. As a result, residents in the confined areas will undergo daily diagnostic tests, and each household will be able to send one person to the street to buy food and other supplies, according to the statement. TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.